What's up, guys? I'm Emmett Short. This video is a conversation with Alex Divinsky from the channel Ticker Symbol U. Alex has a background in computer vision and AI, so when I had a wild theory about Tesla using their expertise in AI to enter the augmented reality space with Tesla glasses, I thought I'd run it by Alex so he could basically set me straight. I just posted that video where I laid out my case, and I admit this is far-fetched, but maybe not as much as you'd imagine. If you haven't seen that yet, I recommend you go check out that video because I lay out all the reasons why it's plausible. Otherwise, please enjoy this conversation on Tesla's potential future in augmented reality. Alex, hey, what's up?
How's it going, man? Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the channel.
Sure, my pleasure.
You are the perfect guy to talk to about why you are totally wrong about my entire thesis and why Tesla will absolutely 100% announce an AR headset, not in the distant future, but in this AI day for 100% sure.
Definitely.
So I want my entire YouTube channel to live or die on this prediction. I'm drawing a firm line in the sand here. So anyway, you have you're the right guy to talk to about this because of your background. Just tell me a little bit about, your history with computer vision and AI.
Sure, yeah. So I graduated from a school called Stevens Institute of Technology.
Never heard of it, so I'm going to win this argument 100%.
Yeah, already winning it, I could tell. So my background there was in electrical engineering and applied math, and then I worked at MIT as a rocket scientist. And there, I really focused on
whatever MIT rocket scientist.
Yeah. So there, I focused on combining radar data and telescope data, so camera data that looked very far away at rocket launches and missile launches, kind of like Tesla did when they were still using radars in their cars alongside cameras.
Did you just kind of you just managed a team where most of the smart people were under you and you're just the manager, and so you really didn't know all the tech stuff, right?
So I actually was lucky enough to manage, but also in case you can't tell, I'm 15 years old. So the way we all
sweet
start,
beard, bro, for a 15-year-old.
Thanks, man. I'm pretty impressed too. So actually, the way I started was as a low-level engineer, right? So I was dealing with the nuts and bolts and the low-level code inside the radar, and we all work our way up from there. So then I became a radar systems engineer and then the lead on a radar. So I got to touch the full stack of this radar that I worked on for about 6 years.
Okay, so whatever, you know what you're talking about. That's fine. But all right, so here, let me lay it out. Tesla is solving vision, right? That's what they say. I mean, Elon kind of says it different. He's like, I'm solving a big chunk of real world AI. I don't know what real world AI is, but he's also said we're solving vision. I've heard Andre say that. So, what the hell is real world AI?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure if Elon even knows what real world AI is, right? So there's probably a few good cases to be made for what is real world AI. The first is general artificial intelligence, which absolutely is not getting solved tomorrow. But you can imagine, just like me and you, we have to do a lot of things to create YouTube videos or whatever our other hobbies are, right? We have one brain that can learn all these different skills. That's a general form of intelligence, editing video, writing stuff, doing math, which I'm terrible at by now, by the way. But that's general intelligence. So I don't think he means that.
Do you think that he's not really talking about, we're getting 90% of the way to artificial general intelligence? I think a large part might be if we solve vision, that's the large part. That's 5%. A system that can learn and understand almost by itself, the way they're setting up all this auto labeling and stuff, go out into the world, and in each new situation that it's never been in, it can look around, use vision, contextualize the world, and be able to interact with it. So do you think that could be what he means by
Absolutely.
a large part of
Absolutely.
general purpose AI? Okay.
Yeah, and specifically for and I'm sure they'll have to retrain it several different ways, and we can talk about Dojo and all the ways they're doing AI training. But yeah, specifically looking around the world and learning how to navigate it, right? Because at the end of the day, what Tesla is trying to do is have a car learn how to look wherever it is and drive itself through that situation, right?
Right. That solving that does seem like, the kind of thing that every robot, whether it's a car or not, is gonna need.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you're making really great points about how once you solve it for cars that need to, learn a new environment, and by the way, in different conditions, fog, sleet, hail, wet roads, above and below cloud lines if you're driving on a mountain and so on. But yeah, then taking that a step back and saying, okay, well, a car is really just a robot. We have robots in our factories. Can we use a lot of this again to train our robots to be part of the assembly lines themselves, instead of having a programmer have to come in and program each robot along the way, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, like wouldn't SoftBank, or I mean Boston Dynamics, wouldn't Boston Dynamics be like extremely interested in porting this over into their humanoid robots so they could navigate the world a little bit better?
Oh yeah, or their dog-shaped robots, right? Or any of the other robots that they have going on, for sure. Yeah.
But so this when they're building these like 3D worlds based on cameras, and then adding all the context specifically for driving and in a way that will help the car navigate the world, don't you think that's like really going to be relevant for an AR system?
Yeah, I do, definitely. And I can definitely see Tesla putting together a AR system specific for cars that works in that type of environment, right? So not solving vision in general, but solving it for high speed on-road applications specifically, right? Automotive applications. Yeah. That's what I think he's really talking about, generalizing the solution for cars to drive themselves.
That's cool. So we agree that there could be some AR implementation down the road, and that the methods that Tesla is using could, in fact, or maybe even be. Do you think that what they're doing has a leg up on what other companies are doing?
Specifically for self-driving, 100%. And like back to your thoughts on AR, they already do this mind of car, overlay to show you what the car is seeing, but adding shapes to it, right? For example, they're overlaying a model of a different car that they're seeing, even though the car doesn't actually see the full model with their cameras, right? Like when you're behind a car, you're not seeing the front of it because it's, blocked by the rest of the car, but the mind of car will show you, hey, this is a whole car and what that probably looks like, at least the general shape. So you can imagine them extending that to project, augmented reality on all the windows inside the car to show you the mind of the car, but like on all the smart glass now, and you're sitting inside the mind of the car, not just the car itself. I don't think they're going to announce that in 9 days, but I bet that type of experience will be a big part of driving or riding in a Tesla that drives itself in the future.
All right, I want to ask you about Apple and Facebook and Microsoft, and these are the names that you think of when you really think of AR. And when people think of what are the bottlenecks to creating, the next Google Glass, something that's actually useful, or something like, a HoloLens, which is very bulky. When you see these renders of Apple Glass, they're always just, they just look like glasses. They're super small. You can't see any of the tech. It's all disappeared into the frame. And so the biggest bottlenecks seem to be miniaturizing everything and putting them into that form factor. But nobody's really talking about how big of a role AI and contextualizing the world is going to play when it comes to the software. So everybody's focused on getting the hardware small. But do you think Facebook and Apple and Microsoft are even using AI, or do they have big data sets when they're trying to build AR software, or is that like not necessary for AR software?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. So let me answer that in 2 chunks. On the hardware, I think we're actually almost there, believe it or not. If you look at, for example, the Snapchat spectacles, those things are awesome and they look like pretty stylish glasses and they come with AR technology built in, right? So I think Facebook is also very close to releasing some sort of hardware for that. Mark Zuckerberg has repeatedly said he's got thousands of engineers dealing with AR, VR, and ultimately the metaverse, right? But I think to your point, there's two types of data that really matter here, right? Tesla is focused on data under motion. So, the car, they're solving the problem at high speeds with low number of video frames to be able to do things like instantly decide whether they need to brake or not, right? So something unique to their solution that's not true about your Facebooks, your Googles, your Amazons or whatever, your Microsofts, is they have to solve at speed.
But don't you think companies like that, if they're not designing for speed, don't you think they're kind of overlooking the fact that people are going to be wearing these? Like I think I texted you, I like to use tech while going fast. Like, I am not going to want to just only use it. Like if I can't use it while I'm jogging or biking or I'm on a tour bus or whatever, because the AR tracking is all off and it looks like nothing's, stuck to the world in my AR world, then I'm just like, oh God, this sucks. And I would take it off. It'd be a bad user experience. So that's, I guess, my big point is Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, do they have data sets to train the AR how to adapt to those environments? Is that necessary? And does that give someone like Tesla a leg up down the road?
Yeah, so the answer to your question, I think, unfortunately, is yes. These guys have all of the data, all the images in the world, right? No, sorry, yes, Facebook and Microsoft have that data, right?
Oh, they do.
So they do, yeah.
They don't talk about it. I Googled and I couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
They're not only, they just don't talk about it. They don't talk about how they're using AI to train for AR. They don't talk about any data sets. You cannot find anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
hey, if I'm wrong, people out there comment, give me some links, because I Googled and I couldn't find it. But anyway.
For sure. Yeah. So, another good example is Pinterest, right? Which is really good at taking images, understanding the context of those images, extracting objects inside those images, and linking images together by what's in them, right? For example, you search for a coffee table and it's like, I'm returning you every image that contains a coffee table, even if it's not just an image of a coffee table. So I think, we have to identify what does fast mean, right? You like to use tech when you go fast.
Yeah.
A bike, I do think that Facebook and Snapchat have the ability to use their headsets under low speeds, right? So when you're jogging, when you're on an escalator in a mall, when you're on a boardwalk,
even when you're jogging, your head's going up and down. Do you think it's gonna?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because that's what they're working towards, right? The consumer experience when you're inside a mall, you're out of your car, you're arrived at your destination. They're doing AR for, wherever you're at, right? As opposed to Tesla, which is a fundamentally different problem. Under motion versus under 2D motion constrained to a road versus being able to look around up and down when you're in a mall, right? Like, oh, what's that store over there on the second floor or the mezzanine or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They're actually two different problems. One's tied to your face, one's tied to your surroundings in a car, right?
Yeah, I completely get that. So walking around, cycling, jogging, when you're outside, you're on streets and whatnot, that's where Tesla is going to have an advantage. But indoors, people, multiple stories, they don't have any data on that. There's no cars running around in those types of environments. Okay, now here's another prediction I'm going to make, because a lot of people talk about Tesla software as a service model, right? And they're going to own that screen in their car, and that's where all the money's going to go through, on the screen in the car. Well, I've always thought that idea was really flawed, because I already have an Apple TV that bypasses my living room TV, and I cast things from my phone straight to it. I would be so upset if I wasn't able to just use that monitor in my car and stream something from my phone. If I had to use Tesla's a separate service just to use that. Like, that's my car, that's my screen, I own that. Like, why can't I just cast my, my phone to that screen? But if there's an augmented reality system that takes place outside, inside the windows and like projects outside into the world, and you could get advertisements and recommendations and even like make it look like you're driving through in warp speed animation, going through the car, like when you hit plaid mode, you get plaid outside your windows. Like, those are the types of things that I really do think people will pay for, experiences, and that is very specific to the inside environment of the car. But if it's just like streaming Netflix on the screen, I don't see that being a revenue stream when you can just cast it from your phone.
Yeah, what do you think? So I 100% agree with you. I think it will be Tesla's job to compel you to use their screen how they want to use it, instead of you just overriding it, casting stuff to it, whatever. I think Tesla is doing a great job building out capabilities, at least the start, to already do that. For example, Tesla Arcade, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine that being the start of you saying, hey, I'm not going to cast this movie from my phone to it. I'm going to check out what's on the Tesla Arcade, right?
Or like proprietary games. Yeah, you can only get
games,
this.
Yeah. And you can imagine, I agree with you 100%. If they're projecting cool stuff on the windows or making a total in-car experience, like the warp speed example, now all of a sudden it's like, I don't want to touch that screen. I want that screen to do whatever it's going to do, because that's way better than the Ren and Stimpy episode I was just going to project to it, right?
Right.
So
yeah, if you're sitting in your car and you're looking out the window and you're learning stuff about, whatever you're driving by, I mean, that's like the new Facebook. Like, why would I have my face buried in my phone in the car, in a self-driving car, when like I could look out the world and have such an enriched experience and get a lot of information? I mean, that's like the new platform for ads. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. Not just ads, but context, right? Like, hey, that over there is a mall. That over there is the nearest charging station. That over there is your destination, and it's tracking like as the car turns and moves.
But all those places are going to be paying for extra access to be top of the list,
for sure,
for our attention. Yeah, the attention economy inside a self-driving car is going to be intensely fought over.
And I think that's where Tesla's real, market leading edge will be, because that's only true inside a Tesla. When it's driving itself and no other car is, you can either literally drive in a car or you can take a ride in a Tesla and get that experience. And if they can make that economically like competitive, why would you ever not take a Tesla, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I don't even know. So now I guess the idea would be how difficult would it be to have windows that project, all this AR stuff into the world? Is that going to happen before they make contact lenses? I don't know.
I think other cars already do that. Like, I think there's a model of a Corvette that already like projects the speedometer onto the windshield, and the windshield is like everything that's usually in the console is projected onto the windshield. I don't think that whole end-to-end system you're describing exists yet, but the technology to do that is already there. We know from looking at Mind of Car mode and Tesla's vision system that it sees that, and we've seen other examples of people projecting stuff onto their windshield. You can imagine marrying those two existing systems today, and then just projecting like, hey, here on this windshield is where I see that car in Mind of Car mode on the tablet, Exactly.
They just have to figure out how to manipulate the image to make it appear to be on the road. Yes, you're right. Yeah, that shouldn't be too hard. Cool. It's
easy. Yeah.
No sweat. You guys, hey, tech guys, get on that. Get on that. We want that. Look, I knew this was a completely far-fetched idea to say that they would have an actual headset, especially for this AI day. Now, I'm glad that you are on board with the idea that they could create an AR experience inside their cars one day, and that the data and everything they're doing for FSD is probably going to be super helpful in creating that. That's correct, right?
I think so. Yep. Yeah. So I think the real big difference is two things, right? It's low speed, but way more information. So for example, imagine a crowded mall. What Tesla's going to do is just, have a quick solution that says, here's all the stuff I can't drive through, right? It's for obstacle avoidance specifically. But if you put on something like a Snapchat spectacles, that's not going to say, hey, just avoid these obstacles. It's going to try to give you context, like, hey, there's 82 signs in front of you that I can project stuff on. There's 450 people and I can recognize their faces. There's, they're doing a whole different application with that same data, not just trying to not hit it with a car, right? And then the other thing, the second thing is you can look up in those glasses, which is fundamentally different than Tesla, where it's looking forward around the car. That ability to look up, for example, to the second story of a mall and see signs at a different angle, third story, fourth story, right? Not just high signs like on a road, is another unique feature of something like spectacles, because your car doesn't have a neck, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds silly, but like, right?
They do have an AR patent. Do you think that was just completely like meaningless? Like, why do you think they even went out and got that patent? Do you think they couldn't, why wouldn't they just buy Microsoft HoloLens for their factory workers? Why would they try to do this themselves?
So I think HoloLens, for example, is a pretty general application, right? So HoloLens does everything from project games to, be able to project augmented reality onto a surface. And it's part of a larger ecosystem, right? That Microsoft ecosystem. So I think Tesla is looking at specific applications, for example, training a robot, or, telling a robot exactly how and where it should do a task. So because their AR application is so much more focused, it kind of makes sense for them to try to build it themselves, because then, by the way, they have the competitive advantage of spinning up a new gigafactory, training everything in it with AR and VR or however they're doing it, and no one else can do that, giving them a huge lead in manufacturing, which is where Elon Musk often says that's the biggest lead Tesla will have in a decade, when everyone's on electric, everyone has solved artificial intelligence broadly. The winner is going to be the one with the best factories, right?
Yeah, damn it. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching. If you would like to see more of Alex and I talk about what we actually expect to see at Tesla's AI Day on August 19th, then as soon as I'm done editing that, I'll link it right up here, and you can just click, or it'll be in the description. But that's coming soon. Thanks for watching. This debit card from Crypto.com gives you free Netflix and Spotify. Their app is solid. It makes spending your crypto winnings way more accessible, plus a free $25 if you use my link in the show notes.